Good day. It feels like at the start of every year we say that this year is going to be the most important in recent history, but maybe this year truly is the case. Decisions made this year, policy decisions, outcomes of elections will probably truly have a major impact on the country's future, both short-term and long-term. And kicking off this year's, or the first So What interview this year, it is therefore pretty appropriate that we should say a bit more about last night's State of the Nation address. And our expert today in this regard is Professor Piet, well known to all of us and to all of you, Director of the Business School, also Professor in Ethics, who is very well equipped to say a bit more about last night. So Piet, perhaps we're going to go a few minutes. As you know, here at the Business School we have this kind of practice of evaluating students' work by saying, does not meet expectations, meets expectations, exceeds expectations. Mr. Ramaphosa's speech was a student dissertation. Which of those three categories would you possibly allocate?
Yeah, it depends on what you expect from a State of the Nation address, the genre of what type of speech it is. I would, in terms of my own assessment, I would say he met expectations. And I think where the issue of a little bit more detail and concrete was the missing link to the exceed expectations. But it clearly, in my view, he met expectations of setting the broad agenda for the country, enumerating almost point after point the big issues that face our nation, and for that I think we should thank him.
Let's talk about the positives,
okay,
and then perhaps later one or two negatives.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that one positive is he did so with dignity, with gravitas, seemed in control of everything.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was a statesman-like performance. It was inclusive. It was not the ANC president speaking to us, but truly the president of South Africa. You know, the politicians have this idea to say, our people and our communities, and mostly they mean with that their parties and followers. But Ramaphosa, the president last night, I felt it is my president.
And he covered a great deal.
He covered a great deal. There's almost not a topic that was not properly, at least alerted to. Not that all the detail was there. I think there are a few omissions, but I think in general the agenda was put forward, and that was satisfactory.
And could one argue that's really the most you would want to expect from this, setting the agenda?
Yeah.
The devil's always in the detail, but I suppose in a certain sense there is a bit of fragility in his position until the election.
Yeah. We worked under two constraints. One is a political constraint that he is still not fully in control of the party. You know, the court case just a day or two before the time where Supra and the guys in Northwest, although it will not have a big effect, shows us that he was politically constrained. And secondly, he's economically constrained. We simply don't have money to throw around. In fact, we need to save. So under those constraints, I think he put the agenda that one would have expected him as the president to do.
So what's next? Obviously a budget speech in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
The money man.
Yeah.
An election a few weeks after that.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem facing Mr. Ramaphosa is the mistrust in government, the mistrust in the state. And I always say that the ANC holds within itself this ambiguous position on the economy. On the one hand, we want a developmental state, and the state will do this and the state will do that. On the other hand, we say, well, it's important that the private sector play a role, but we get very mixed messages in this regard. And I checked the speech last night quite carefully, and at all the key points, it was interesting that he inserted, and with the private sector, and with our partners. So I think he moved a little bit away from this idea that the state has all the answers and the state has all the capacities. What was interesting is on the state-owned enterprises, where he said we have to look at different models. He was very cautious in his wording. He says, we will not dispose of strategic assets. Now my question is SAA strategic or not? So those are interesting questions that one has to ask.
But he also did emphasized quite a lot how important it is to make it easier to do business in South Africa.
I'm very happy. Out of the 178 countries in the world, he said we want to dip below the 50. Now, obviously, if he brings a more management-like approach to government, and he also said he will reduce the size of the cabinet or government structures after the election, and we then get an accountable. So we say, well, we were 78, we're now at 72, we're now at 68. What are we going to do? That would be fantastic if the sonas of the future, in the first part when you look back, you can say, listen guys, last year we had that investment, this year we had that. So that there's a little bit more concrete accountability in the system.
Again, that kind of balance sheet approach, or report card approach.
Yeah.
And then I suppose a bit of an elephant in the room for some people, and one hears more and more the accusation that for the last 9 years or 10 years he was actually part and parcel of the previous decision making, and should you have not, so the question goes, been more categoric about his position then?
Yeah, I would have expected a little bit more humble statement from him at the beginning. It would have been rhetorically a very powerful moment if Mr. Ramaphosa would say, in this very house, the wasted 9 years, he wouldn't have put it in those words, the lost opportunities. We were part and parcel of it. We acknowledged that we didn't understand the depth and the breadth of state capture. But I am here today to say that as president of this nation, I commit myself that this is past, we're going forward, our complicity is there, it will be shown to the commission. But anybody will tell you no politician in an election year can be expected to say something like that.
And then finally, the almost eerie silence by the EFF and their leaders.
Yeah, I think two reasons for that. The EFF specifically put a condition around the Bosasa donation, and according to the leader of the EFF, he fulfilled that mandate and he said we're reasonable people, therefore we did not disrupt. And on the other side, I think the fact that the leader of the opposition said this speech should have been held 10 years earlier because this is what the DA have told you all the time. I think that is simply how good democracy works. If I'm in opposition, the hope is that the ruling party will take over some of my ideas. I contest that. So I think I like the almost boring nature of the speech because there was enough gravitas and dignity to make me proud, and not this security guards and white shirts coming in and out. I think last night we restored the dignity of Parliament.
I must say, I watched bits of Donald Trump's State of the Nation address a few nights earlier, and that looked like a circus compared to ours.
Exactly. But we have a president that is a serious intellectual. He understands global issues. He's an educated person, not that is always a prerequisite, but in this case I think we have the right person and we now need to see the delivery.
Well, thank you very much. I think the message we're getting is so far so good.
So far so good.
A qualified endorsement, and the proof of the pudding now lies in the eating thereof, and the devil's in the detail.
Absolutely. We wait for the budget and for the different ministries.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Piet.
Thank you very much.